Wolpertinger. The Wolpertinger can be found in Germany and is a mysterious creature that roams the alpine forests of Bavaria. This odd-looking creature isn't particularly large or vicious, but can be incredibly scary due to the fact it is made up of different body parts of various animals. It has the head of a rabbit, the body of a squirrel, the legs of a pheasant, and has antlers, fangs, and wings. Legend has it that if you are brave enough to try and lure the Wolpertinger in to see it for yourself, you need to bring salt with you and a trap. It is said that if you sprinkle salt on its tail, you can supposedly catch it. Also, if you prop open a sack with a spade and light a candle inside, the demon will be attracted to the light, and once he's inside the sack, you remove the spade and trap him. But be very careful, because if they feel threatened, they can attack, and they are extremely quick. The creepiest thing about this demon is that some people have hunted down various woodland creatures to create their own stuffed Wolpertingers to keep, sell them to tourists, or give them to hotels or inns to put on display for all to see. So if you're planning a trip to Germany, I would definitely steer clear of the forest in Bavaria. You wouldn't want to come into contact with this demon creature. In at number 4 we have Tatzelworm. The Tatzelworm is a huge man-sized worm or snake with a feline face and a reptile tail that usually lives underground in the Eastern Alps in Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Italy, Bavaria, and Austria. The only time you may get attacked by this hideous creature is if you disturb it or threaten it while it's burrowed. It is believed that this demonic creature is extremely venomous and can attack you with its poisonous breath, and tends to make a high-pitched hissing sound when attacking their prey. So if you ever hear that nail on a chalkboard like sound, I suggest running the other way. The name Tatzelworm isn't traditionally used in Switzerland. They usually refer to this demon as Stollenworm, or the dragon of the mine tunnels. The Stollenworm may also be interpreted to mean a serpent with short, thick feet. An early description of dragon sightings in Switzerland was seen by Johann Jacob Wagner as early as 1680, and then illustrated further by Johann Jacob Schuster in 1723 and referred to as Schuster's dragons. The cat-headed serpent with black-grey body and no legs was said to be encountered by Johann and Thomas Tinner at a place locally known as Hauwellen on the mountain of Frumsen in the barony of Alsace, Switzerland. It was alleged to measure 7 feet or more in length. Residents in the neighborhood were complaining that their cows' udders were being mysteriously sucked on, but the incident stopped after this creature was killed. Another account of this demon was described as a 4-legged cat-faced mountain dragon by Andreas Raudner as something he encounters in 1660 on Mount Wangersberg in Sargensonland, and when it reared up on its hind legs it became as tall as a man with boar-like bristles running down its back. A 70-year-old man named Johannes Egerton came into contact with this beast and said when it exhaled its breath, the man said he was overcome with dizziness and a massive headache. The naturalist Carl Wilhelm wrote in his book History of Dragons of the Alps in 1887 that these creatures have died out by now, but to this day the Tatzelworm phantom legend lives on, and many people still believe these demons remain. In at number 3 we have Black Shook. The Black Shook may be the most terrifying of them all, and definitely the deadliest. It's a huge black dog with evil red or green eyes that roams around the countryside of East Anglia. If you ever come in contact with this demon creature, you will most likely die or at least become very ill. Even just looking in the Black Shook's eyes directly means certain death. The Black Shook is referred by many as an omen of death if ever seen or came in contact with. The name Shook derives from the Old English word skuka, which translates as devil, fiend, and to terrify. In Littleport, Cambridgeshire, it's home to 2 different legends of black dogs, which many believe are linked to the Black Shook. One account refers to the story of a huge black dog that haunts the area after being killed rescuing a local girl from a lustful friar in pre-Reformation times, while the other story tells of a black dog that haunts the A10 road after its owner drowned in the nearby River Great Ouse in the 1800s. In May 2014, a large dog was excavated at Leiston Abbey by Dig Ventures, and many believe it was the remains of a Black Shook. Dig Ventures came out and said they don't believe the remains were from the Black Shook, stating it was only 2 feet tall and was around the size of a mastiff. Carbon dating of the bones indicated the dog was said to be from around the 16 or 1700s. Many people have reported sightings of the Black Shook, and even to this day locals believe this demon is still roaming around England. One local woman said she had seen the creature one summer morning in the 1950s when she returned home from dance near Cromer. A Suffolk man said he had seen the dog one evening on the marshes near Felixstowe, and another account of a woman who was cycling during the 1930s. One winter night, the woman was riding her bike home after making a delivery when she was followed by a huge dog dog, and no matter how fast she pedaled, it seemed to effortlessly keep up to her before suddenly vanishing into thin air. The Black Shuck has also been seen many times in pop culture, like in the hit TV show Teen Wolf, the 2019 movie Annabelle Comes Home, the 2020 video game Assassin's Creed, and even referred to in the 1999 novel Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. In at number 2 we have Basilisk. The Basilisk is an extremely dangerous being. It is a legendary reptile that is referred to as a Serpent King, who can cause death with a single glance and is believed to be able to breathe fire. This snake-like being is not very big but is highly venomous and can kill in an instant and leaves a wide trail of venom behind. The Basilisk is quite different from a normal looking snake and is named King because it is seen to have a crown-shaped crest on its head. One of the earliest accounts of the demon comes from Pliny the Elder's Natural History, written in roughly 79 AD, where it's described as a monstrous cow-like creature and all who beholds its eyes fall dead upon the spot. The only thing that the basilisk fears is a weasel. It is the only animal that can face and attack the demon snake, and apparently the weasel's urine is the basilisk's kryptonite. It can also be killed with the crowing of a rooster, and many travelers would, and some still do, carry a rooster when they venture into areas where it was said that the basilisk lives. Some people have speculated that accounts and descriptions of cobras may have given rise to the legend of the basilisk demon. Cobras can maintain an upright posture and are often killed by mongooses, and the king cobra have a crown-like symbol on its head. Several species of spitting cobras have the ability to spit their venom from a distance, often in their prey's eyes, so they have many similarities to the basilisk. So if you're ever in southern Europe, I would beware of this monstrous snake demon. And finally, in at number 1 we have Balbus. This demon tends to reside in areas of Lithuania and is basically the boogeyman on steroids. It is a dark demon who will come and kidnap misbehave. The Balbus has piercing red eyes, long thin arms, wrinkling fingers, and the most terrifying face. This demon creature stands almost 7 feet tall and their body appears like a large skeleton covered in black leathery skin. They also have extremely sharp claws and usually pounce on their victims from above. Sometimes they use two-handed weapons but still have the ability to fight off their opponents with their claws, teeth, and horns. This demon likes to hide under carpets or inside dark crevices of your house before appearing and snatching the child. The Balbus is devious, mysterious, and will stop at nothing to make sure they are victorious in everything they do. Their more subtle sadism and stealth sets them apart from every demon on this list, and they like to capture their targets for later torture as opposed to immediate bloodshed. In many places like Italy and the Eastern Mediterranean, the Balbus is portrayed as a tall man wearing a heavy black coat with a black hood or hat which hides its face. Sometimes parents would loudly knock under the table, pretending that someone is knocking at the door to make their children behave. It is also featured in a popular Italian nursery rhyme saying, "Who do I give this child to? I will give him to Balbus for a whole year." This tactic is used by many parents throughout Europe to make their children who are misbehaving fearful of getting the wrath of Balbus and in turn making them behave better. Many believe that the popular boogeyman was actually inspired by this demon by the fact that he likes to kidnap during the night, hide in darkness, and frightening children into good behavior. The boogeyman is a term used to instill fear in children, and the Balbus is the most terrifying demon of them all. In at number 5 we have Ava in Ava's Possession. Ava's Possession debuted at the Dead by Dawn Horror Film Festival in 2015 and centers around a young woman named Ava that has recently been possessed and successfully exorcised, but now she must learn how to put her life back together. The film begins with a priest successfully completing an exorcism on Ava, who was stunned to find out that she has spent the last 28 days possessed by the demon Nafula. This demon was based on a natural real-life demon by the name of Vapula, who is a powerful Great Duke of Hell that commands 36 legions of demons and is depicted as a griffin-winged lion. This demon is a fallen angel and 60th of the 72 spirits of Solomon and has skills in philosophy, mechanics, and sciences. Vapula, also known as Nafula, is mentioned in many readings throughout history, especially in the world of demonology, magic, and witchcraft. After Ava's exorcism, she went from bad to worse when her actions brought her to cause serious emotional and physical damage, which resulted in losing her job, friends, boyfriends, and potential jail time. Her family urged Ava to accept a plea deal that would spare her jail time or committed to a facility for troubled ex-possessed people if she attended a rehabilitation program for the recently exorcised. Ava began attending this program and it was urged that she took it seriously. If she didn't, it was very likely the demon would return to her and she would become possessed once again. At a group meeting in the facility, Ava meets Hazel, a fellow ex-possessed person that wants her demon to return since she enjoyed its presence and felt it was special for both of them. While Ava is trying to remember her missing 28 days, she discovers bloodstains on her floor and is led to a clue where she soon finds out that when the demon possessed her, she had murdered someone. And she's just constantly thinking what she did to become a target of Nafula. After finishing the program, she soon starts to get her life back together until Ava discovers some old files revealing that her mother has also been previously possessed by the same demon, resulting in her finding out their bloodline is prone to possessions. Fun times. In at number 4 we have Pazuzu. Pazuzu is a fictional character who is the main demon in the Exorcist horror novels and film series created by William Peter Blatty. The character of this demon was derived from Assyrian Babylonian mythology, where the mythic Pazuzu was considered the king of the demons of the wind and the son of the god Hambi. He also represents the southwestern wind, the bearer of storms and drought. This demon is known to bring famine during dry seasons and excessive water during the rainy season, and is considered to be an evil spirit by all. Pazuzu is often depicted as a combination of diverse animal and human parts. He has the body of a man, the head of a lion or dog, talons of an eagle, 2 pairs of wings, and a scorpion's tail. Pazuzu first appeared in the Exorcist novel in 1971. The novel is about a 12-year-old girl, Regan McNeil, that gets possessed by a demon. The demon is later revealed to be Pazuzu. Even though they never state that he is the demon, 2 references were made about this statue, which was uncovered by Father Lancaster Merrin in northern Iraq. After Regan's mother worries about her daughter being possessed, 2 priests, Merrin and Harris, arrive at their house to perform an exorcism on Regan to force the demon out of her body, but in their struggle to free Regan from Pazuzu, both priests die. 2 years after the novel was published, The Exorcist was released in theaters as a motion picture. In the second installment of The Exorcist, Pazuzu is named as the demon and returns to haunt Regan. The demon is prevalent in each and every movie released. In the 4th Exorcist, Pazuzu was actually shown in his first encounter with Father Merrin in Africa. After the movies, The Exorcist became a television series and Pazuzu continued to pursue Regan and possessed and killed her daughter. After killing Casey, the demon is able to possess Regan again and is almost able to take complete control of her mind. With the help from a priest, Regan tries to fight back against Pazuzu and the demon is successfully exorcised from Regan's body. William Peter Blatty's creation of Pazuzu and The Exorcist was based on heavily reported series of events from 1949. Fun fact, there is a true crime case involving a man named John Alexander Lawson that was a self-proclaimed Satanist and demonology lover. He was inspired by the famous demon Pazuzu and changed his name to Pazuzu to pay homage to the demon reference in the movie The Exorcist. In at number 3 we have The Taking of Deborah Logan. The movie The Taking of Deborah Logan is a 2014 American found footage supernatural horror film. It tells the story of a documentary crew making a film about Alzheimer's patients who uncover something sinister while documenting a woman who has the disease. The filmmakers and writers did not base this movie and characters on real life. Deborah Logan is a fictional demon, but the most terrifying nonetheless. Though in the beginning they tried to make it appear as a real person, this film is about a team of students, Maya, Gavin and Louie, who to create a documentary about a woman named Deborah Logan, an elderly woman who has Alzheimer's disease. As the film crew records her daily life, Deborah starts to exhibit increasingly bizarre behavior, but her physician believed this is normal for someone with an aggressive form of Alzheimer's. The cameraman, Lewis, begins to notice that her actions defy normal explanation and believe that something supernatural is going on. Things grow more tense after the group notice that they have a recording of Deborah of her talking in French, talking about snakes and sacrifices, and her behavior becomes so extreme that she is hospitalized. Deborah is possessed by Henry Desjardins, who had disappeared after a series of cannibalistic ritualized murders of 4 girls. If you want to find out more about this possession, you should watch the movie. There is no confirmed ending, and that is the most terrifying part of this demonic movie. Even though it's not based on true events, it really makes you feel like it is. It was voted 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Ain't It Cool News called it found footage done right and stated that it's one of the most effective entries in the popular subgenre of found footage horror. Coming in at number 2, Dybbuk, The Possession. The Possession is a 2012 supernatural horror thriller based on an article written by Leslie Goldstein called Jinx in a Box, and the story that was created by Kevin Manis. In 2003, writer and furniture refinishing business owner Kevin Manis purchased a cabinet from a yard sale and claimed it was haunted by a Dybbuk, a concept from Jewish mythology. The word Dybbuk comes from the Hebrew word evil. The term appears in a number of 16th century writings and is a malicious possessing spirit believed to be the dislocated soul of a dead person. It supposedly leaves the host body once it has accomplished its goal, or after being exorcised. The box gained notoriety when Kevin auctioned it off on eBay, including the story claiming that the cabinet was previously owned by a survivor of the Holocaust in Poland, who said it contained the malicious spirit of a Dybbuk, and that the box had paranormal powers and was responsible for this bad luck and nightmares. This box went through a few hands before being sold to Jason Haxton for $280, The museum curator and collector of religious paraphernalia began to research the source of the box and launched a website about it called dybbukbox.com that reportedly received hundreds of thousands of hits and created what's been described as an internet legend. In 2004, Jason sold the rights to the story to a Hollywood production company, and that created the 2012 release of The Possession. The movie tells the story of this so-called demon box, when a dad begins to witness his young daughter acting strangely following the purchase of an antique wooden box with Hebrew markings on it at a yard sale. The little girl became more and more obsessed with this box, and her behavior becomes increasingly erratic and alarming, ultimately leading to the girl becoming possessed by the demon haunting the box. In 2021, Kevin Mannis came out and told Input magazine that the Dybbuk box story was entirely fictional, that he came up with it. And finally, in at number 1, we have The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel. Anna Elisabeth Anneliese Michel was a German woman who underwent 67 Catholic exorcisms over the span of a year, and her story inspired the 2005 film The Exorcism of Emily Rose, the award-winning 2006 film Requiem, and the 2011 film Anneliese the Exorcist Tapes. When Anneliese was 16, she began to experience seizures and was diagnosed with psychosis caused by temporal lobe epilepsy. Shortly after, she was also diagnosed with depression and was treated by a psychiatric hospital. By the time she was 20, she began to hear voices telling her that she was damned and would rot in hell, and began to hallucinate while she was praying. Her conditions began to worsen, was depressive, and put on different types of medication. After 5 years on psychiatric medication failed to improve her, Anneliese and her family believed she was possessed by a demon. As a result, the family reached out to the Catholic Church for an exorcism. While rejected at first, 2 priests got permission from the local bishop in 1975. The priests believed Anneliese was in fact possessed by a powerful demon from hell, and knew they needed to do anything they could to force this creature out of the girl's body. The priests began conducting exorcism sessions, but through all of this she stopped eating food and passed away due to malnourishment and dehydration after a total of 67 exorcism sessions. The story of Anneliese is still told by many to this day, and it's believed to be one of the most real and powerful stories of demon possession in history. Coming in at number 5, we have Rubisol. Rubisol, or Rubisol, is a folklore mountain spirit of the Giant Mountains, a mountain range along the border between the historical lands of Bohemia and Silesia. This demon is the subject of many different legends and fairy tales throughout German folklore. Legend has it that Rubisol is a giant gnome or mountain spirit. With good people, he can be friendly, teaches them about medicine, and gives presents, but if someone disobeys or disrespects him, his revenge is severe and can be deadly. He sometimes plays the role of a trickster in folk tales. The origin story of Rubisol comes from pagan times, and he is known as a fantastic lord of weather of the mountains, and is similar to the Wild Hunt, which are a group that roam the sky during storms and is an omen of disaster. This demon has the ability to change the weather drastically. He can send rain, lightning, thunder, and snow from the mountain to the lands below. Rubisol takes the appearance of a monk in a grey frock, holds a string instrument in his hand, which is known as the storm harp, and walks so heavily that the earth shakes around him. Others believe the demon inhabits that of a large bear and wolves to blend in with the other animals on the mountains. In the area surrounding his mountain, there is a large botanical garden named after the demon, named Rubisol's Garden. In the Czech Republic, local fairy tales say that Rubisol gives sourdough to people and invented traditional regional soup named kaislo. There is also a mountain named Kotel, which means cauldron. When fog rises from the valley at the bottom of the Kotel, people say that's when Rubisol is cooking the kaislo soup. To this day, this demon's legend lives on. Coming in at number 4, we have Adanc. Adanc, or Afanc, is a demon originating from British, Welsh, and Celtic mythology. It's said to look like a beaver, crocodile, or dwarf-like demon, and are about 7 feet long and weigh around 250 pounds. They prey upon those who are foolish enough to enter the lake it lives in. This demon once lived in Llyn Bafog, or in Llyn Lion Lake, and it can be lured out of the water by a woman, and once this happens, Adanc becomes powerless. There are some stories of this demon being destroyed. One tells of a man dragging the beast out of the water to slay it, another says it was lured out of the water, where it eventually fell asleep and was bound in chains and slayed, but many believe this demon still roams in the lakes of Europe. The Adanc is a solitary predator that builds dams to create smaller lakes, but still a part of the larger lake it lives in. Once they find the right place for a habitat, it's their territory and theirs only. Anything that comes near the lake or the adjoining rivers becomes becomes this demon's prey. The Adank hunts its prey by floating just under the surface of the water, waiting for its next meal to approach, and when it does, they attack with a bone-crushing bite. And once they have their prey in their mouth, the Adank then drags them under the water and goes in for the kill. They wait for the prey at their most vulnerable and takes advantage of that. Like a beaver den, the Adank's lair can only be accessed from below the water's surface, but is truly hideous sight because they use the remains of its victims for decoration of their habitat, and the stench of decay lingers all around the demon's lair. According to many historical writings between 1382 and 1410, it describes the mass destruction of Adank and how he can cause massive flooding, and one time in particular, the floods caused all the original inhabitants of Britain except for Dwyfyn and Dwyfach, who went on to find a new race of Britons. This demon is recognized by many throughout Europe and the world and is mentioned in many different books and TV shows. In at number 3 we have Picolus. Picolus is a demon from the ancient inhabitants of Prussia, described as an angry and evil spirit, with the appetite for human blood. Picolus and Patalo were gods in the pagan Prussian mythology worshipped by the old Prussians. Most researchers believe both these gods were the same person, and were in charge of the underworld and the dead. This demon was first mentioned in 1418 by Bishop of Warmia in a letter to the Pope and chronicler Simon Grunau. In a letter to the Pope and chronicler Simon Grunau, who provided more details about Picolus. According to Simon, Picolus was one of the 3 gods portrayed on the flag and coat of arms of King Widuto, and worshipped in the temple of Ricciotto. He appears to look like an old man with a white beard and white headdress. He was scary and ruthless god of the dead. This demon would haunt and taunt the living if they disobeyed the pagan priests or buried the dead without proper sacrifices to the gods. Many other medieval writers believe in Simon's descriptions of the demon. In another writing, the Sadovian books, it mentioned 2 beings, Pekals, the god of hell and darkness, and Pekals, airborne spirit or devil. The same bear is also found in the church decrees of 1530. Many believe these 2 demons mentioned are just extended descriptions of Picolus. Caspar Heinenberger and later authors attempted to reconcile the accounts provided by Simon Grunau and the Sadovian book. In the 17th century, Christoph Harknock and Matthias Praetorius testified that people still believe in this demon, and many believe Picolus is in fact the devil. In at number 2 we have Bifrons. Bifrons is from the Earl of Jinistan, with 6 legions of demons under his command. He teaches sciences and arts and has knowledge of gems, woods and herbs. This demon has the ability to change corpses from their original grave into other places, sometimes putting magic lights on the graves that appear like candles. He first appeared as a monster but then changed his shape into that of a man to blend in with earthly people. Bifrons was originally the Roman god Janus and is often referred to as so. In ancient Roman religion and myth, Janus is the god of beginnings and transitions, also of gates, doors, passages, endings and time. He is also well versed in astrology and planetary influences, as well as geometry, herbology, mineralogy and botany. He is usually depicted as having a monstrous appearance along with 2 faces, due to his ability to look into the future and the past. The Romans named the month of January in his honor. Janus presided over the beginning and ending of conflict, and hence war and peace. The doors of his temple were open in a time of war and closed to mark the peace. As a god of transitions, he has functions pertaining to birth, journeys and exchange. Janus had a major presence in religious ceremonies throughout the years and was ritually invoked at the beginning of each one and heavily honored on many different occasions. Bifrons is mainly in charge of moving bodies from one grave to another, while hellish demon Muma takes over the souls. Accordingly, Bifrons has 26 legions of Jinistan's army under his command and is the 46th spirit of the 72 Solomon imprisoned in a brass vessel. And finally, in at number 1 we have Krampus. One of the most popular demons coming from Europe is Krampus. He is a horned half-goat, half-man beast who terrorizes children throughout the Christmas season who have misbehaved. Assisting St. Nicholas, the pair visit the children on the night of December 25th each year, and St. Nick rewards the well-behaved children who have been good all year with gifts, while the badly behaved ones on the naughty list get a visit from Krampus and receive punishment from him. The origin of this demon is not directly known, but many believe this demon goes back centuries and originated in Germany, and since 1984 this demon has become known globally. Since the 19th century, during the Christmas season, many Europeans will exchange greeting cards featuring the Krampus demon. The feast of St. Nicholas is celebrated in parts on Europe on December 6th, and on the evening of December 5th is known as Krampus Night, where the wicked hairy devil appears on the streets, where he visits homes and businesses, wreaking havoc on unsuspecting humans. Many people believe Krampus has multiple appearances, but the most common one is that he is hairy with black or brown fur, has hooves and the horns of a goat, as well as long pointed tongue hanging out and sharp fangs. There are festivals all throughout Europe held to celebrate Krampus, while many dress up in elaborate, horrifying costumes that resemble this demon. In the aftermath of the 1932 election in Austria, the Krampus tradition was prohibited by the Dollfuss regime and the Christian Social Party. In the 1950s, the government distributed pamphlets titled "Krampus is an Evil Man." Towards the end of the century, Krampus' popularity rose, and the festivals began and continue to this day. Young men dress up in Krampus costumes and roam the streets, frightening children with rusty chains and bells. Many of these festivals take place in Austria, Romania, Bavaria, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, and Croatia, just to name a few. We've all heard about Santa, and kids are constantly told if they have bad behavior, they will get coal for Christmas, but many don't realize that this has come from the legend of Krampus. This demon has become a global figure and is depicted in many horror films and has become a part of American pop culture.
Number 5 on this list is the Shadow Doll. Whatever demon took up residence in this evil-looking doll was not one that the Warrens were too fond of. Scare Street says, the Warrens' files do not state why this horrible doll was created in the first place. However, they do state that it was used in satanic rituals and it was created by black magic using human and animal bones. It's rumored that if a picture were to be taken of the doll, it would project itself into the dreams of the person who dared to look at it in the eye. However, it is not only a simple dream. The dream would be so intensely nightmarish that the victims would either suffer from a heart attack or forever be frightened of sleep because of the horrifying looking doll. The files even state that there were a few deaths caused by it. The Shadow Doll was later found in an antique shop, and oddly enough, a couple purchased it. After the purchase, the couple began to encounter the eeriest of nightmares. They later found out that they were experiencing the same nightmares of the cursed doll, and that the husband had scratches all over his back and neck, which could only be traced back to the Shadow Doll. Clearly, this doll and its capabilities was something that the Warrens were very concerned about. It's one thing to be attacked when you're awake and conscious. Let's face it, this happened to the Warrens all the time, and they were constantly having to deal with scary demons coming after them. Obviously, this was never a great time, but it was something that they could handle. Getting attacked while you're asleep, though, that's a completely different animal. You are now being haunted in a world where things won't make any sense. A world where this Shadow Doll can manipulate the physics and do things that they wouldn't be able to do outside of our heads. It also meant for the Warrens that they wouldn't have one another. They were a team and tackled every single one of their demonic foes as a unit. Getting attacked while you were asleep in your brain meant that the other person, even though they would most likely be lying right next to you, they'd have no idea that you're getting attacked and wouldn't be able to do anything to save you. All of this is why the Warrens had to take this doll and bring it to their museum. This was of course after they performed various ceremonies on it to try and extract the demonic presence. Number 4 on this list is the Amityville Horror House. This is the case, the demon, the haunting, that launched the Warrens to stardom. But don't think that it didn't come at a cost. Pop Sugar says, the demonologists became a household name for the supernatural after their involvement in the infamous Amityville house. The scary elements of this story really began in 1974, when 23-year-old Ronald Defoe Jr., one of the children of the Defoe family, murdered his 2 parents and 4 siblings in their sleep. The house was empty for a year, but George and Kathy Lutz eventually bought the house for a very cheap price of $80,000. The couple and the children only stayed for 28 days after seeing slime ooze from a wall and a red-eyed pig creature among other disturbances. In addition to these occurrences, George saw his wife levitating and said that he woke up at 3:15 every day, the time when Defoe killed his family. The Warrens came in and determined that there were psychic troubles even before the notorious murders. A demon was in this place causing problems. The Warrens knew it, and they had to deal with it. Now, I don't think that the demon can be blamed for everything that went on here. At the end of the day, murder is murder, and I don't want to take anything away from that. But after the fact, this place was susceptible to being haunted, and a demon definitely came in here and haunted it pretty well. It's their most famous case for a reason. Number 3 on this list is the Enfield Poltergeist. The Enfield Poltergeist was a possessive demon who specifically targeted 2 young girls. MovieWeb says, this well-known case formed the subject matter for The Conjuring 2. This case saw the Warrens flying overseas to London, England in order to investigate alleged poltergeist activity in the North London borough of Enfield. Peggy Hodgson, a single parent, had initially called the police after 2 of her 4 children had reported knocking sounds on the walls. Peggy herself claimed to have witnessed furniture moving around with no explanation. This was apparently also corroborated by a police officer visiting the house. Ed and Lorraine Warren were convinced that the events were of supernatural origin and appeared to be predominantly focused around 2 of Peggy Hodgson's teenage daughters, with the girls seeming at times to apparently levitate off the ground. So like I said, a demon who really enjoyed possessing people. These are some of the most dangerous types of demons because you simply don't know who or what to believe anymore. If you're living in a house that's haunted, then how do you know that your dad, for instance, is who he claims he is? How do I know who to trust? Also, I am just as susceptible to being taken over by this creature, and I can't imagine that that's a great time. It's easy to see why Ed and Lorraine Warren were scared by this demon. Number 2 on this list is the Annabelle doll. One of the most famous demons that the Warrens ever encountered, Annabelle certainly gave the pair many sleepless nights. The story behind Annabelle starts with a girl named Deirdre, who got the doll as a gift from her mother. It was a nice gift at first, but it wasn't long after she had it that she started noticing some weird occurrences. She would leave the doll in one spot, and then when she came home later that day, sure enough, the doll had moved somewhere else. Pretty creepy. This was creepy to begin with, but it gets a lot worse. One day she came home and noticed that the doll was covered in blood. It was at this point where she decided to seek a professional opinion. She sought the help of a medium to get advice. Scare Street says the medium told her about a little girl named Annabelle Higgins, who was once a happy child playing in the fields until her life mysteriously ended. After her death, she roamed the buildings that were built on this field. One night, her boyfriend, Cal, woke up to see Annabelle shocking him. It was awfully strong. Another night, Annabelle had attacked him and left him with 7 bloody scratches on his chest. They decided to contact their local priest, and that was how the Warrens heard their ominous story. The Warrens delivered the victims a shocking truth, saying that there was no Annabelle and it was a mere trick from a demonic spirit which was allowed to manifest the doll after their agreement. The Warrens told them that the spirit was given permission to inflict harm on them, and that if they had remained silent, the spirit would have killed them all within a week or 2. They held an exorcism and took the doll with them. Whilst driving though, Ed lost control over the car for a few times, and the priest who had made fun of the doll was killed in a dreadful accident. Disturbed by the doll, the Warrens decided to keep it in a sealed box. This thing almost took Ed Warren off the road and could have ended the Warrens' lives prematurely. Safe to say that they feared this demon a decent amount, I think. And finally, number 1 on this list is the Conjuring House. The famous Ed and Lorraine movie was based on fact, folks, one of the scariest run-ins the pair had with the demon. MovieWeb says the house in question, located in Harrisville, Rhode Island, is said to be haunted by the ghost of a woman alleged to be a witch. The commonly accepted story states that the woman killed her son and herself in order to haunt any future occupants of the house. The Warrens' investigation took place in 1974 when they made repeated visits to the property in order to investigate reports of a malevolent entity capable of lifting beds, whilst also filling the air with the reek of rotting flesh. This particular was of course the basis of the first film in the series, The Conjuring. While Ed Warren had already passed away during the production of the movie, Lorraine Warren served as a consultant on the project. Of that long ago investigation, she admitted the things that went on there were just so incredibly frightening, it still affects me to talk about it today. Literally, Lorraine, when she was alive, was still affected by the things that went on in this house. It's no wonder that Hollywood saw this as a prime opportunity to make a movie and rake in the money. The original story was just so scary to begin with. Number 5 on this list is Dalakatnon. These are tricky demons, and if they approach you, then you need to be very wary. Wikipedia says Dalakatnons are a race of elf-like creatures in Philippine mythology. In Visayans, they were believed to be handsome and beautiful creatures that resemble nobles and monarchs of the pre-Hispanic Philippines. They dwell on Dalakit trees, hence the name Dalakatnon, which literally means from the Dalakit or Dakit tree. This mythological race exhibits sexual dimorphism, the men having light-colored skin and very dark hair, and women having bronze-brown skin and brown hair. Stories say that they have leaf-shaped pointy ears, depicted in modern times as gothic, like tall, handsome males and beautiful females. They dress in fashionable manner, live in the haunted house-like mansions, and try to fit in with mortal people. Some believe that the only way to Dalakit, their dwelling place, is by entering the Dalakit trees. These creatures abduct people and take them back to this world. They hold a feast for their victims and force them to eat the black rice that then puts them under their spell, making them their slaves. So that sounds like the actual worst. You get taken to their mystical land and then forced to eat this rice, which, I mean, I can only imagine is gonna be something really gross, because then it makes you their slave. My question is, what the hell does becoming their slave even entail? Like, what is this world that I now live in, and what is it that I have to do here? I guess I'm in some evil elf-like hell or something, but that doesn't really sound like a great time. The biggest problem with this is that you need to be super vigilant, or else it's very likely that they could get you. If you don't notice those pointy ears, then that could be game over, guys. Number 4 on this list is the Amalanhig. The Amalanhig are sort of like the Philippines version of a zombie. Myths and folklore says, in the Philippine mythology, the Amalanhig or Maranhig are flightless aswang that came back to life after death. They rise from their grave after failing to pass their power to a relative. Upon rising from the grave, these Amalanhig lurk in the woods and live as bloodsuckers. At night, they go to nearby villages to prey on the residents using their sharp, pointed tongue. Aside from the Amalanhig of Aswang origins, some deceased humans could also turn into Amalanhig. These are people who died with unfinished business or were murdered and came back for revenge. The Amalanhig with unfinished business are relentless in pursuing the persons they have chosen to fulfill their goals. Avenging Amalanhig tickle their victims to death while sucking their life force. According to one legend a long time ago, before the Spaniards came to the Philippines, a chieftain ordered his priestess to create an army of warriors that couldn't be killed. These immortals were created by killing ordinary men and encrusting their bodies with dark soot, putting a strange pebble in their mouths and doing other rituals. After 3 days, they came back to life, but they were mindless, walking corpses that only died after accomplishing their task. They had me right up until I learned that they tickle their victims to death. Like, don't get me wrong, I still do not want to run into something like this, but I guess it's just hard to be scared of something that's gonna tickle me to death. The whole sucking my life force thing, yeah, that sounds like the worst. I don't want any part of that. But tickling? Really? We couldn't have come up with any other way of murdering people, guys? Number 3 on this list is the Pugot. I get serious Stranger Things Demogorgon vibes with this next demon creature. Myths and folklore says, in the Philippine mythology, the Pugot, which translates to the decapitated one, is a mythical fiend that's found in the Ilocos region. It can assume various shapes such as hogs, dogs, or even as humans. However, it usually appears as a black, gigantic, headless being. The creature usually resides in dark places or deserted houses. However, they especially like living in trees such as the duhot, santol, and tamarind. Aside from its shape-shifting abilities, the Pugot can also move at great speeds, feeding on snakes and insects that it finds among the trees. It feeds by thrusting food through its neck stump. Although terrifying, the Pugot is relatively harmless. However, the creature is fond of women's underwear and steals them when they're being dried on a clothesline. The Pugot is also found in the Il Fuoco myth Tulod Nimputo, the self-beheaded, where he appears to the human hero. He was fed by the hero with chopped chicken meat that was mixed with blood. So I guess the good thing about this is that even though it has incredible power and speed and could be super dangerous, it chooses not to be. Well, unless you're a pair of ladies' underwear, in which case you might be in for it. Actually though, what is up with these Philippines demons? They're just kind of plain creepy, guys. Like, we had the tickle zombie and now we have the headless Demogorgon panty thief. I swear that this legend was just made up by like some super weird guy just as an excuse for why their neighbor's underwear kept going missing. Number 2 on this list is the Bati-Bat. This is a very dangerous demon and one that you do not want to piss off. Myths and folklore says in the Philippine mythology, the Bati-Bat or Bangungot is a vengeful demon found in Ilocano folklore. These demons were blamed as the cause of the fatal nocturnal disease called Bangungot. They usually come in contact with humans when the tree that they reside in is felled and made into a support post for a house. This causes them to migrate into holes found in the post. The Bati-Bat forbids humans from sleeping near its post. When a person does sleep near it, the Bati-Bat transforms to its true form and then attacks that person. It sits upon the chest of its victim until he suffocates. To ward off the Bati-Bat, one should bite one's thumb or wiggle one's toes. In this way, the person will awaken from the nightmare induced by the Bati-Bat. Once again, guys, we just have one of the scariest demons here with also the weirdest caveat attached to it. To ward this thing off, we need to wiggle our toes? Like, are you actually kidding me? I mean, at least this one doesn't steal panties, I guess, so, that's a thing. Also, this one, unlike some of the others, is actually very deadly. You could easily die from this thing if you're unable to wiggle your toes, which would actually be rather hard considering you're going to be asleep when this thing attacks, so it could be game over. I could totally see how if I was living in the Philippines, this thing would be one of my biggest fears. Like, I would exclusively be living in like a brick house or something. No wooden posts for me. And finally, number 1 on this list is the Ek-Ek. This one had to be number 1, and when you hear what it does and how it operates, you'll understand why. Wikipedia says in Philippine mythology, Ek-Ek are bird-like human creatures. They are winged humans who search for victims at night. They hunger for flesh and blood. They're usually described as flying creatures that look like the Menangle but are unable to divide or split their body in the way that one does. The Ek-Ek is also associated with the Walk-Walk because of some similar characteristics. The only difference between a Walk-Walk and Ek-Ek is that Ek-Ek has a bird-like bill whereas the Walk-Walk has none. The Ek-Ek can transform into a huge bird or bat at night to prowl in the form of. Similar to the Menangle, the Ek-Ek looks for sleeping pregnant women. Then it extends a very long proboscis into the womb and kills the fetus by draining its blood. It's said that while this is taking place, a ek-ek-ek sound is often heard. The Ek-Ek fools people into thinking that it's far off in the distance by producing a faint sound when it's actually really near. What the actual heck, guys? Most of these other demons are derpy dudes looking for underwear and tickles, but this thing? This is for real. Fetuses and blood draining and just no, I don't want it. How on earth does the Philippines grow in population with these things roaming around? I'd be too scared of having this thing come attack in the middle of the night. And tons of people feel the same way. Many rituals and services are done to try to ward off these creatures. I hope that some of these work because if they don't, consequences could be dire. Number 5 on this list is the Jinn, an ancient demon whose main method of attacking people was to trick them. History collection says the Jinn, or Jinn of Arabic and Islamic mythology, closely matched the original classic daemon or demon. Neither good nor evil, the Jinn were supernatural spirits born of smokeless fire long before the creation of humanity. The Jinn were spiritual beings, formless shapeshifters with magical power powers who are ranked somewhere between humans and angels. They were not immortal and humans could kill them. However, a long lifespan compensated them for these disadvantages. In Persian mythology, the jinn had their own land, Jinnistan, whose capital was the City of Jewels. However, the jinn also haunted the human world, with favorite places of residence being the desert as well as rivers, wells, and even marketplaces. In this sense, they are very much like the Roman geniloshi spirits of place, and it was customary to ask the local jinns permission before drawing water or even traveling into alien territory. If they appeared before humans, the jinn could appear as animals, monsters, or people. Whatever form they took, people could quickly identify them by their flaming eyes, which were also vertical rather than horizontal. This unusual attribute gave the jinn a sinister appearance that married well with some of their more suspect traits. For although the jinn could be helpers, they were also known to be malicious tricksters. In the worst scenarios, they would raise storms and cause disease, insanity, and death. Islam teaches that every human has an evil jinn whose sole purpose is to tempt its human opposite into evil. This reputation for malevolence is compounded by the fact the chief jinn, Iblis, is also known as Azazel, the Islamic devil. So yeah, I don't think summoning these guys is the best plan. You could literally release a massive disease on your whole city or something like that. Also, you need to be extremely mentally stable and strong to not get tricked by these evil things into doing something that you don't want to do. Speaking as a pretty gullible individual, this would really not be a good idea for me. Number 4 on this list is the Yaoguai. Unless you want your literal life force to get eaten, I wouldn't summon these demons. History Collection says the Yaoguai, or strange ghosts or strange devils, were mythical Chinese demons who, like the Asura, desired immortality and godhood. They included in their number animal spirits such as the fox spirits and fallen celestial beings. However, even though they acquired their powers through the practice of Taoism, the Yaoguai cared little for the balance between light and dark. They were firmly on the dark side and would stop at nothing to achieve their goals of deification. They believed they could accomplish this goal by consuming the life force of holy men. One tale of the Yaoguai appears in the 16th century Chinese novel Journey to the West. The story tells of the pursuit of the holy man Yao Xiang by Bei Guzhong, or White Bones Demon. However, unfortunately for Bei Guzhong, Yao Xiang was traveling in the company of Sun Wukong, or the Monkey King. The company first encountered the evil spirit disguised as a young girl searching for food. However, the Monkey King saw through the demon's disguise and drove it off with his staff. The Bei Guzhong tried again, firstly disguised as an old woman and finally as an old man. This final time, the Monkey King killed the demon, revealing its true form, a skeleton. Staffs, however, were not the only way to deal with these demons. As they lived in the underworld, the Chinese believed they were afraid of the light. So bonfires, fireworks, and torches were the perfect way to keep them at bay. So if you summon this thing, you may not even know that you have, because it could appear as something else entirely. So, unless you have the awareness and power of the Monkey King, which, no offense, I kinda doubt you do, this demon will probably end up getting the better of you. Number 3 on this list is Baelor. Baelor was said to be the chief of a demonic tribe in Celtic culture. He and this tribe threatened the Celtic people with death and destruction constantly. It was also a pretty actionable threat because Baelor was a literal giant. So he and his tribe could obliterate any human resistance if they so chose to do so. His overall strength and size wasn't his best weapon though. His best weapon was his eyeball. His eyeball was said to be poisonous. If Baelor glared at anyone with this evil poisonous eyeball, then they would die right there and then. That is a pretty ridiculous power and kind of OP if you ask me. Now the good thing about this is that legends say Baelor was defeated by his grandson. There was basically a lot of drama and his grandson fought him and took him down. He was never actually killed though. Legend says that he slunk away to the sea and he still resides there to this day. Summoning this demon is clearly just a horrible idea. Not only would you die the second that you summoned him because his eye, but everyone around you would die pretty soon after that too. Just think about the damage a demon like this could cause in a big city. Like, we'd have no way of defending ourselves. Hopefully, my dude stays in the sea for good. Number 2 on this list is the Shadim. These were ancient demons associated with destruction and human sacrifice. The history collection says, to the Mesopotamians, the Lamassu or the Shedu were powerful human-headed, eagle-winged guardian spirits of the home or the state. The Mesopotamians erected statues of these powerful entities who had the body of either a bull or lion at the gates of palaces or cities. There, they were well placed to ward off invading armies and ensure peace to those within the city walls. In ordinary households, images of the Shedu were carved on clay tablets and buried under the threshold to ensure peace and happiness within. When the Israelites encountered the Shedu, however, they interpreted them in a very different way. Some of them took up the Mesopotamian custom of worshipping them, hence disapproving references in the Old Testament to how such people sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Now, to the Jewish mainstream, the Shedu were false idols that possessed statues and masqueraded as gods. As such, they were evil, and so became the Shedim, demons associated with destruction, illness, and human sacrifice. So I guess if you were Mesopotamian, then you could summon these guys and it'd be all good, but if you're anyone else, probably not a good idea. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not trying to deal with a demon full of destruction and illness and just don't want to handle any of that. So no thank you, not trying to get sacrificed today. Number 1 on this list is Allah. So instead of reaching for a Nature Valley bar, this demon would grab the occasional child when she was hungry. Just great. The history collection says Allah is a female demon from Eastern Europe who, like many demons, seems to be derived from a belief in nature and weather spirits that could cause disaster and disease. Allah was believed to reside in clouds, lakes, and springs, or remote mountains or caves, or in large trees. When she visited humankind, she could take many forms. Allah could manifest as a vast black wind or a female dragon, a large-mouthed human, or a raven. She could even possess people. All or any of these relate to Allah's primary characteristic, all-consuming greed. If angered, the demon could manifest violent, thunderous hailstorms to destroy fields, vineyards, and orchards. However, it was equally likely she would satisfy her enormous appetite by devouring the produce herself. And when not over-consuming stolen grape or grain, Allah also liked to snack on her greed was so insatiable that she also periodically tried to eat the sun and the moon, therefore causing eclipses. So not only could you or your get eaten if you summon this thing, but you might also cause the entire world to end if this demon decides that she's hungry enough to chow down on the sun for good. Also, how big would this demon need to be if she was about to eat the entire sun? Like, that doesn't even make sense to me. Either way, never summon this demon because the human race could literally be at stake if you do.